Congressman, thank you for joining us on Recess here. Your reaction, first of all, just to what we've seen and heard today about this prisoner exchange.
Look, obviously, any day Americans who are wrongly detained or held hostage are released, it's a good day for the United States of America. And obviously, we are very happy that Evan Gershkovich, as well as Paul Whelan, among others, have been released, and certainly are happy for their families. And I do think, obviously, the administration deserves support for having brokered this deal. Certainly, conversely, obviously, when you engage in these negotiations, difficult decisions are made and criminals are released. And we know Vladimir Putin has a history of doing this, knowing full well that he uses it as leverage to get bad actors and folks who engage in his bidding around the globe released, including now a murderer that the Germans released as part of this agreement. And so, it just obviously reinforces the fact that Vladimir Putin is a vile dictator and thug who certainly at some point needs to be held accountable for all of his actions.
Your chairman, Mike McCall, on the Foreign Affairs Committee released a statement earlier talking about how thrilled he was for the release of these folks, but also making the point that the release of these Russian criminals held in the U.S. and elsewhere, he says, sends a dangerous message to Putin that only encourages further hostage-taking by his regime. You touched on this a little bit, but do you think the U.S. gave up too much here? And how would you propose getting these folks back without making these kinds of deals?
Look, we have obviously seen, going back to President Obama and Vice President Biden and here in the Biden administration, Vladimir Putin has aggressively pursued activity, including war crimes, including seizing of land, and obviously hostage taking. And I think one of the things that we as a United States need to be clear-eyed about in dealing with Putin and dealing with President Xi in China, in dealing with the Ayatollah in Iran, is that these are not our friends, they're not our allies, and that there needs to be severe consequences for their actions. You look at how those three countries in particular, and you can add in North Korea, but those three countries have worked in a coordinated effort to undermine and destabilize the United States and the free world. Whether you're talking about aggressively invading Ukraine, whether you're talking about the terrorist attacks on Israel, whether you're talking about the illicit oil trade between China and Iran, which is funding the terrorism in the Middle East, we need to be clear-eyed about all of this moving forward. And so to Chairman McCall's point, in dealing with Vladimir Putin, he looks at this in much the way Hamas is looking at holding American hostages in Gaza, including Israeli hostages, is that it is a negotiating tool. It is a tool by which he can gain something. And so, obviously, when you do engage in that negotiation, in some respect, it does embolden them. And that is what we've seen even with Hamas continuing to hold 8 Americans hostage, even though they released Israeli hostages a few months ago as part of a negotiation. They continue to hold hostages because they understand its leverage.
I want to play for you another piece of what President Biden had to say today about this deal and why it didn't or did and did not happen previously. Let's listen.
President Trump has said repeatedly that he could have gotten the hostages out without giving anything in exchange. What do you say to that? What do you say to President Trump now, former president?
Why didn't he do it when he was president?
Sir, what did you... A little tough to hear, but I'll pose the question to you that the president got there. Why didn't Donald Trump secure the release of Paul Whelan, for example, when he was president? He's often speaks very confidently about his ability to strike such deals.
Well, first of all, again, I think we have to take a step back. This is a good day for America. We have Americans coming home, including Paul Whelan. During the Trump administration, you did have hostages released, as you have here. Evan Gershkovich was taken hostage during the Biden administration. And obviously, both during the Obama administration and the Biden administration, you've had Russian aggression in Ukraine.
Paul Whelan was
this
taken
idea
hostage
that
during the
we're
Trump
trying
administration.
to, we're trying to have but the idea, Garrett, that we're trying to have this, well, no, it should have been Donald Trump or it should have been Joe Biden. I mean, come on. At the end of the day, Vladimir Putin is the vile dictator and thug who engaged in this conduct.
Sure.
And ultimately, we want our hostages brought home. We want Americans released. I give the Biden administration credit that they were able to get this deal negotiated. As Chairman McCall and I pointed out in our comments earlier, obviously, when you do engage in these negotiations, we are giving up something. There is a risk that Putin is emboldened to continue to do this aggressively. And that's why it is so important that, as the United States, we understand the threat. And the threat is not each other. It is the vile dictatorship, the despots, the totalitarian regimes of Russia, China, and Iran that seek to undermine and destabilize the United States.